Welcome to the AfterBurners podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Oni, and this is episode 33. I know, I'm like that boxer on the, I don't know his name, but
You're
I'm trying to do, pardon? I'm trying to do,
up this week.
yeah, I'm trying to do that impression of the boxer's commentator. All right, then. Right, I'm here, Samuel Oni, with me, virtually is Wes Spearman. Wes, how are you this evening?
I'm pretty good. I mean, what a race again. This
Oh.
season is one of the best in recent memory. And yeah, Brazil, another almost classic, if you like. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. It's been same. That weekend, Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, people who are going to watch this, if you have not watched the Brazilian Grand Prix this last weekend, please go and watch it. Go and watch it because it's absolutely great race, sensational race. Anyway, let's get into it. Qualifying, Lewis Hamilton was on pole for Mercedes. Coming into the race, he had a lot to make up because Verstappen was ahead of him in the championship, but he was on pole. But unfortunately, he was disqualified due to a technical infringement with the rear wing. Wes, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Mercedes would just had the pace again this weekend in qualifying. I don't whether the engine that Hamilton, the new ICE that he took, internal combustion engine, had any effect on that. You think a little bit, but probably not as much pace that he had all weekend, because it wasn't just Friday qualifying that it was fast. It was the whole weekend. He just seemed to have so much more pace than not just Bottas, but both the Red Bulls as well. Yeah, as for the disqualification, I suppose at the end of the day, it is illegal, whether it was by like 0.2 of a millimeter or 10 millimeters or whatever it was, to do with the rear wing, the DRS. There was too big of a gap between where I'm not quite sure what it is in the end. I don't quite understand it myself, to be honest. But
yeah,
whatever it was illegal. And at the end of the day, I suppose you have to say that if it's illegal, then the car has to be penalised, and that penalty is a disqualification. Also mentioned that Verstappen got €50,000 fine for going into another team's parc fermé, which isn't allowed. Only authorised officials are allowed into parc fermé to scrutinise the cars to make sure they are legal. Whether that had any impact on what happened to Hamilton, whether that led to his car investigated, I think both he and Verstappen have said that wasn't the case. Obviously, at the end of every sort of session in F1, they have scrutiny and make sure all the cars are complying to the rules. And obviously, Mercedes wasn't at that point. I think Mercedes were also a bit chased off of the fact that Red Bull have been allowed to replace parts or mend parts before scrutiny. I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, same here. Heard that as well.
But yeah, I suppose if you go into scrutiny with an illegal car and they point out that it's illegal, then you can't really complain too much. Whether it was intentional, I don't think so. So whether it was just a fault, it's just unlucky for Hamilton and Mercedes. But I suppose again, at the end of the day, it didn't really matter too much.
Yeah, and with that, Hamilton was disqualified from qualifying. Moving on to sprint qualifying, then at this point, Valtteri Bottas will now start on pole, if I'm correct. Yeah, Bottas will start on pole with Max Verstappen alongside him, and Ferrari's Carlos Sainz would go third as well, which was
No, I've
interesting.
just looked at the sprint grid. Verstappen was on pole, Bottas second, but then Bottas. I think we got confused with Bottas being pole because Bottas won the sprint race. It was good. It was a good drive from Bottas.
But it was, yeah.
And yeah, as you say, Perez third. Gasly started fourth in that one as well. And yeah, and Bottas. I mean, we were saying that since he's been announced to move to Alfa Romeo, he's actually done pretty good. He's done pretty well for himself. Unfortunately, that didn't translate into the race on Sunday, but yeah, good drive from Bottas. Kept Verstappen off pole, which, to be fair, was probably his only job during the sprint race. Got 3 more points for himself and for Mercedes in the drivers and constructors championships. it allows, well, just gives, I suppose, prevents Verstappen from getting an extra point over Hamilton, or an extra 3 points rather, because obviously Hamilton finished outside the points in the sprint race. But I suppose it's just every little thing that Mercedes can do to try and limit the amount of points that Verstappen can get each weekend is they're just doing what they've got to do. And fair play to Bottas, he did that on Saturday in the sprint race.
Indeed, indeed. And it was the sprint race that really got everybody fired up in Brazil, because Lewis Hamilton is starting at the back of the grid. Yes. And it means Nikita Mazepin is starting in front of Lewis Hamilton, which is
unthinkable, really.
Unthinkable. Like, you don't picture that, do you? Anyway, Lewis Hamilton back of the grid in a sprint race, and you're probably thinking, nah, it's not happening. Lewis Hamilton's not gonna, get into the top 5 or the top 10 of the sprint race. It's impossible. What is he gonna do? Ladies and gentlemen, I have one thing to say for you. Never doubt Lewis Hamilton. Never doubt Lewis Hamilton, because he can do the most unthinkable things in the most unlikeliest of situations. He can pull things out of the bag.
Yeah, I mean, 24 laps, 15 places. It was a remarkable drive from Hamilton, and I think people would have expected that maybe he might have got into, say, the top 10 or something, maybe the top 7, 8, but to get 5th, 15 places, 24 laps, less than half an hour of racing. I mean, A, it shows just how good a driver Hamilton is, and B, shows how good the Mercedes car is and just how much pace Mercedes had that weekend as well.
Yeah.
It was just an incredible drive. Finished above Gasly, who started 4th, above Leclerc, above Norris, Ocon, Vettel, Ricciardo. Yeah, just incredible driver. I don't think we're running out of superlatives to describe just how good Lewis Hamilton is. 15. Yeah, I just can't take away from that fact. 15 places in 24 laps. It's insane.
I mean, I don't even know the maths. That's almost like what, 6 places per? No, that's not right.
It's not 6 places for that.
No, sorry. I don't know. I don't know. My maths wasn't.
It's a lot, basically.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's 1.6 places per lap.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I've done that the wrong way around. 0.6 places per lap.
Right. So every
2 laps, or every 5 laps, he's overtaking 3 people.
Yeah. We got there in the end. Anyway, but it's brilliant, isn't it? Because you don't think that Hamilton's gonna do something like that, but he just pulls out some miraculous performance, and that means, as well as the 5th-place grid penalty he has to the race, it means he doesn't have to start any lower than 10th, which is ultimately where he started for the race. But how impressed have you been with Hamilton this season? That's almost a silly question, but go on.
I suppose, actually, over the course of the season, probably not as impressed as I have been with him over the last, say, 5-6 years, because it's the first time that he's behind in the championship since probably Rosberg in 2016.
Yeah.
But still, the drives that he's put in, I mean, this is probably the best of the lot. Certainly this season, this is his best drive. I can't think of many other drives besides maybe Hungary, where he was the only one to line up on the restart.
Only one to
Pitted, went back to
15th,
16th, and then back up into, I think it was 2nd in the end after Vettel was disqualified.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just over the course of the whole season, perhaps. I mean, I'm still impressed with him. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
He's still,
of course.
Well, arguably the best driver on the grid, and easily one of the greatest of all time. But yeah, this weekend he was just in a league of his own, really.
And a lot of drivers after hearing that Hamilton was finished P5, a lot of drivers were almost one of like looking over your shoulder thinking, right, this guy has gone up 15 places and he started P5. I wonder how fast he's gonna be come Sunday's race. Like, you know,
I mean, Alonso, I think, just laughed when he asked his engineers. It was just like, "Oh, so where did Hamilton finish in the end?" And they were just like fifth. And I think he just laughed it off. It was just, yeah, that's just Lewis Hamilton. He can just do those. He can do magic things that makes him makes up 15 places in 24 laps in less than half an hour. Yeah, ridiculous sprint race. Easily the best sprint race of the season. I mean,
yeah,
there wasn't much competition at Silverstone and Monza, but maybe this weekend has given perhaps a few more people, or made a few more people feel a bit more comfortable with sprint races. Perhaps, maybe well, not next year, but maybe a few years down the line, perhaps taking over as the main sort of qualifying format. So, I mean, I'm still happy with Q1, Q2, Q3 as per normal, but yeah, the sprint race, you get another race, and if it's like Brazil every week, then you get another action-packed race as well.
of course, and from sprint qualifying to the Sunday race, and the Sunday race, we all watched it or listened to it on the radio, like myself, and it was an eye opener, especially the first lap, especially the start finish line. Bottas didn't get a very good start. Bottas did not get a very good start. Now, if I remember correctly, well, go on, Wes, you take it away because I've almost forgotten it. That's very bad
so
of me.
so yeah, Bottas on pole after the sprint race, and I think tried to go round the outside of certainly the first part of the center as the sort of left-hander, but then that meant Verstappen had sort of the inside line for is it the Curva del Sol, the sort of big left-hander, onto the back straight. And yeah, Bottas, I don't know what happened to him. He just seemed to lose pace there when he tried to go around the outside of, I think it's called Curva del Sol, turn, what, 3, 4? And yeah, that allowed Perez to come through as well. So it was a Red Bull 1-2 after the first few corners, which I don't think many people would have expected. I think myself included, I thought Bottas would, again, with the pace that Mercedes had shown that weekend, I suppose the confidence that he would have had off the back of winning the sprint race as well, maybe he would have been a bit faster, certainly held the lead for the first lap or two before the Red Bulls got through. But for whatever reason, it wasn't to be for Bottas. Let both Red Bulls through. One of the Ferraris as well. I think it was, I can't remember if it was Leclerc or Sainz, made up a few places as well. But I mean, also meant to Carlos Sainz third in the sprint race as well. I think it was
that was
brilliant.
Brilliant from Carlos Sainz. Another driver who's had a good performance this season, and yeah, he started very well.
Yeah, and then I suppose the race sort of, I'll say settled down a little bit. It did a bit in the front, but a bit further back, Hamilton was just, I think he made up about 5 places on the first lap, I think it was, and he was back up into, I think it was 3rd place by lap 5, and at that point, Bottas had to let him through on about lap 5 into 3rd place, we could attack the 2 Red Bulls.
Yeah, team radio in the Mercedes. I think he said, I think Bono may have said, or Bottas engineer said, it inverts cars.
Invert the cars, yeah.
Invert the cars, and then Hamilton said, "Thank you, Valtteri," and so for letting him through. And then Hamilton said, "Oh, Valtteri, follow me. Where's he going?" I didn't know what he meant by that. I think he just probably meant, "Oh, let's drive together and get these Red Bulls." I think that's what he said. But yeah, just his radio, which I thought was nice because with Hamilton now in front, he could he could like set his sights on Verstappen, you know, because he's already made up 8 places to get into P2, which was absolutely stunning, just amazing. So yeah, what did you what was your what was your big moment of the race? Listening to it, watching it, what was the eye opener for you on that Sunday
Um,
race?
so there were a few. I think the first one would have been the battle Hamilton and Perez had. I think it was again at the Senna S's. I think Hamilton overtook him, and then Perez got it back from I think from memory, and then stayed ahead for another lap or two, and then obviously Hamilton, well, I say unfortunately for Red Bull fans and Red Bull themselves, and Hamilton managed to get back ahead. And I suppose the big moment is, well, obviously people on YouTube will be able to see my background is of when Verstappen and Hamilton went off at I think turn 4 or 5. I can't remember what they're called now. Yeah, where Verstappen went to this was after it was after both sets of pit stops. Mercedes pitted first with Hamilton to get the undercut on Red Bull, which sort of worked a little bit because I think after that pit stop, Hamilton was about 2.5 seconds, 2.6 seconds behind Verstappen. Then Verstappen pitted, I think, the next lap. And then, sorry, was then 2.6 seconds ahead of Hamilton. And then Verstappen went over the radio saying, we can't let ourselves be undercut again. Both teams doing the two-stop of Red Bull pitted Verstappen first that time round. I think they got a bit of a lead back over Hamilton. But Hamilton was just a machine in that second stint or those second set of hards. And yeah, the big moment where they came, well, almost came together, I suppose you could say, because Verstappen went the inside, the sort of usual defensive position. Hamilton round the outside on the right-hand side of the track. And yeah, both drivers running off the road.
Off the road.
There'll be debate whether, but is there much debate as to whether that was intentional by Verstappen? I don't think so.
It
From
depends.
what
I
I've
mean, it depends on
seen,
how you see it.
it's
How did you
intentional.
see it watching the clip? How did you see like who's at fault? Whether, and also should it have been investigated? Because it wasn't investigated by the stewards.
Well, they investigated it and decided that no, that there wouldn't be a penalty, that it didn't warrant a penalty. But from what I saw on Channel 4 highlights and what I think Anthony Davidson said on his little Sky analysis, what David Coulthard said on commentary on Channel 4 is that Max Verstappen had no intent to exit the corner. He intended to run at least Hamilton. Whether he intended to run himself off the track, I'm not too sure. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, Max Verstappen wanted to run Hamilton out of road, run him off onto the little, I say little, it's quite big in that picture on the YouTube background, on the green and yellow sort of runoff area. And well, you could say it worked at least for a lap or two until Hamilton made the move stick at the same corner as I say a lap or two later. Did it deserve a penalty? A lot of people are saying yes, it did deserve a penalty. At least 5 seconds, and I can understand that. But at the same time, there have also been incidents this season where Turkey, for example, Hamilton versus Perez, where in the last few corners, Hamilton tried to essentially push Perez down the pit lane.
Yeah.
And Perez went past the pit bollard, which usually is an indication that you have to pit, but then came back onto the track and he didn't get penalised for that, Lewis Hamilton. So I can see why people are saying that it deserves a penalty. I can see why people are saying that it doesn't deserve a penalty. I suppose at the end of the day, it is clean, hard racing. I mean, neither driver was hurt. There's no damage to the cars. I think, in my view, I think it should be penalised by 5 seconds because the amount of well, this isn't very good for listeners on Anchor and Spotify, but in the picture on YouTube, you can just see how far off the track those cars are. They're at
Yeah.
least 2, if not 3 cars widths off the track, which is almost the width of the track itself at that point.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, it's I think for that reason that I think if Hamilton was just nudged just off the curve and Verstappen was still inside the track limits, then I think that would have been fine. But because the cars are just so far off the track and Verstappen didn't intend at all to essentially let Hamilton go round the outside, which is fair. You can understand why. It's good hard racing, but to push him that far off the track and to go off track himself by that far as well, by 3 cars widths, yeah, that warrants a penalty for me. What are your thoughts?
I think, well, my thoughts are probably the same as yours. That, well, I think Verstappen may not have given Hamilton enough space when coming on the right hand side, especially as Hamilton is coming on the outside as well, which leads to Hamilton and Verstappen himself going off track, and then it just raises a lot of questions as to, like, should it have been a penalty, some sort of punishment for Verstappen and stuff like that, which ultimately has led to Mercedes up until today, this afternoon, asking for rights to review investigation to the stewards. Mercedes sent out a statement today asking for a review of the incident between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, asking the stewards to look into it because it was the talk of the race. Like, everyone was talking about it, you know, and Mercedes appealing that Verstappen should have been punished for it because, well, it's not that they didn't like it, it's just, you know what I mean. So
Yeah, I think because Mercedes will see at the end of the day that it's Verstappen pushing Hamilton off track, and he's entitled to defend his position, I suppose, Verstappen, but
yeah,
do it by that much to get both cars off the track and onto the runoff zone is wrong. And whether it matters too much, because it doesn't really matter because Hamilton won the race, I suppose you could say, but for Mercedes and for Lewis Hamilton, it will matter that if Verstappen gets a 5-second penalty, because Bottas was 3 seconds behind Verstappen or Perez. Yeah, it was Bottas behind, I think. Let me just check. I've got lost on it here. Yeah, it was Bottas in third, who was 3.1 seconds behind. So a 5-second penalty applied to Verstappen will means that Hamilton would essentially get an extra 3 points or a 10-point difference between first and third for that weekend, which will bring the points deficit for Hamilton further down. I can't remember what it is now. I think it was 21 after the sprint race, and it's now just 14 points. Whereas Mercedes and Hamilton could have been potentially looking at a 28-point deficit if Verstappen won the race, which is just, I mean, to get it down from what could have been 28 points down to 14 is a remarkable effort and an incredible drive from Hamilton to win the race from 10th. It's the second lowest position that he's won a race from. I think he's won a race from 14th. That was the German Grand Prix a few years ago. So incredible drive. Probably one of the best of his career.
I think he said that himself in the
yeah.
He said that himself
when
speaking to
given what went on
Felipe Massa
that weekend. Yeah. Essentially 25 places over the course of 2 days, over the course of 100 laps. Nearly, I think 95 laps, whatever it was. Yeah, incredible, insane. I mean, a lot of F1 driver won't make up 25 places in a year. I mean, the back markers, the Haas's won't make up 25 places in a year, let's face it. So for Lewis Hamilton to do that in one weekend, 95 laps, yeah, insane drive. And now you go into this position with 3 races to go. We've got Qatar coming up this weekend, which, from what I've seen, could potentially favour Mercedes a bit more. I think it could do well for Red Bull as well, because it looks to be quite a high downforce track, which I think typically suits Red Bull quite well. I think just the power of Mercedes will work better in these Middle Eastern tracks. We're coming to a position where if Hamilton wins the next 2 races, so Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and neither Verstappen or Hamilton get fastest lap, or Verstappen and Hamilton get 1 fastest lap each, then we'll be in a situation where we come to Abu Dhabi last
We
race
saw
of the
this
season,
on Twitter, didn't we?
3-4
We
weeks
saw this,
time.
yeah.
I think it was ESPN who tweeted this one out. But if that happens, then we'll go into the last race of the season with the championship level at however many points it'll be. There will be a 0 points gap between Verstappen and Hamilton. I assume if the championship, say for example that that Verstappen and Hamilton are taken out in Abu Dhabi, if they take each other out, if they have failures, whatever, I assume that the championship will come down to whoever has the most race wins.
Wouldn't that be Verstappen in this case?
What would happen. That's a good question, and I wish I thought
Hamilton,
of that before
before Brazil, Hamilton had not won since. Since. I'm not sure.
Where is it? I had the page up for all. Oh, there we go. Races, right?
Because he didn't win in Austin. He certainly didn't win in Turkey.
So Verstappen has won 9 races this season. Lewis Hamilton has won 6.
Right.
So even if Hamilton wins the next 2, Verstappen still has a 1 race win advantage over Hamilton. So I mean, I'm just looking forward to that prospect. I'm hoping Hamilton does win the next 2 races now, with Verstappen second.
Yeah.
And we come into Abu Dhabi with both level on points. Absolute scenes. I don't think we'd have seen something like that. I don't think we've seen an F1 championship or an F1 season where the top 2 drivers are level on points with 1 race to go.
No.
So it is just a winner takes all race. And that could potentially be fireworks at the end if Verstappen and Hamilton are racing wheel to wheel, which hopefully they will with the new changes made to Abu Dhabi. It makes racing a little bit more exciting, more wheel to wheel action. Fingers crossed that they do race wheel to wheel, and I mean whoever it is will be a worthy champion, either Verstappen, either Hamilton. But I'm just looking forward to that prospect with one race to go and winner takes all. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, anyway.
Indeed. And I mean, the predictions went well. I say the predictions went pretty well. I don't know about you, but I felt very confident about my predictions.
You got a point, and I didn't this weekend on our predictions, because I predicted Perez pole, you predicted Hamilton pole, which you would have almost got, I suppose, if
he wasn't disqualified.
If he wasn't disqualified, then he would have been on pole for the sprint race, and I'm fairly sure he would have held on to the lead for the sprint race as well. So no points for pole. You got a point for Hamilton being race winner.
Oh, that was very good.
I'll say at the point we did the prediction, we didn't know that he took a new ICE. We didn't know that he would be disqualified or anything.
Yeah.
So, and then driver of the day, I think you were debating whether to go Hamilton for driver of the day as well.
I was.
In the end, you went Lando Norris. I think it was also quite close because he got a puncher on the first lap and then made it back up into the points.
Yeah.
I think Norris was a contender for driver of the day. I think he was third after Verstappen and Hamilton.
Wow.
They almost got an extra bonus point for driver of the day.
Wow.
I went Carlos Sainz, who finished sixth after starting third. So not a great weekend a good weekend for Ferrari though. Increased their lead over McLaren with just Lando Norris scoring the 1 point for McLaren.
Does this guarantee Ferrari to finish third in the Constructors' Championship? Because they do have
guarantee them. It doesn't guarantee them to finish third, but it certainly makes their life a lot more easier. They lead McLaren by 31.5 points, which is a lot to make up. And especially, I don't really see either team finishing on the podium in the last 3 races. So McLaren have been a little bit unlucky, you could say, with Ricciardo retiring in Brazil and Norris only taking 1 point as well after a puncture, that it hurt them badly. But I mean, hopefully they can get close to Ferrari, if not overtake them. But Ferrari they seem to come back a little bit this year from the horror show they had last year, finishing in 6th.
Yeah.
To come back this year, now at the moment back in 3rd place in the constructors, they've done really, really well. Alpine and AlphaTauri as well, still level on points. I think they were level last weekend. They're still level on 112 points each. So I'm looking forward to see who finishes 5th out of those two, Alpine and AlphaTauri. I think it'll be Alpine, only just though. Aston Martin 7th, Williams 8th, Alfa Romeo 9th, Haas 10th. They won't change. The bottom 4 won't change. It's a debate for. It's a battle for 5th place and it's a battle for 3rd. I know battle for 1st as well, actually. Mercedes leading Red Bull by 11 points with 3 races to go as well. So it's all hotting up towards the back end of the season.
So we've talked Brazilian Grand Prix. We've talked about Hamilton's heroics. We've talked about the race incident between Hamilton and Verstappen, and Mercedes have, requested for a rights of review to the stewards. Now, this weekend is the Qatar Grand Prix, the 3rd race triple header, and a new track in the Middle East. Just some facts here: 51 laps for drivers to race around. It's a 5.38 kilometers circuit length and a race distance of 306.6 kilometers. And there's also been talk whether it's going to be either a day race or the night race, sorry. So maybe I think the key factor here, depending on whether it's a day race or a night race, would be the tire choices, because the weather is going to play a huge role into this. What's your thoughts on this new Qatar race coming up this weekend?
Wow. I think it's a complete wrong decision for everyone to go racing Qatar, to be quite honest. Because of the country's government political issues, you could say, in regards to human rights. You could say that with any of the Arabia. You could say it for quite a lot of tracks on the F1 Canada, to be real. But in particular, those in Arabia, obviously Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, and now Saudi Arabia as well. But the track it doesn't inspire me. It's not. I don't think it's going to be good for Formula One.
It's worth noting, sorry, that MotoGP use the Losail track regularly as well.
Yeah, the MotoGP also uses Portimao and Mugello, which again are races that didn't provide great racing for Formula One over the last couple of years, and I don't see why Losail will be any different, because there's a lack of hard braking zones. There's only one major straight, which is just under a kilometre long, so it's not exactly massive either. Turn 1 really seems to be the only overtaking opportunity, and even that isn't a terribly hard braking zone. It's not like the centre races at Brazil, for example. It just seems fast corner after fast corner after medium fast corner. There's no real opportunity for overtake. I think the average speed round the lap is like 237 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I can't do that. I can't compare that in my head, but it's very, very fast. Which tells me that the drivers don't really need to hit the brakes that often. So the engines are going to be pushed, especially if it's a day race, given the temperatures in Arabia. It'll be around about 35, 40 degrees, I expect.
Yeah.
If it's a night race, obviously that will drop down a little bit, but
it'll drop down to around 20 degrees.
I mean, that's still hot. I mean, we're from the UK. That's like a nice warm summer's day.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, given the drivers in their fireproof suits and helmets, they're going to be sweating bullets by the end of it. I mean, I quite like it to be a night race.
Okay.
If I had to choose between a day and a night race, just because I think it looks a little bit better as a night race, but
Yeah.
I think it'll make things easier a bit on the tyres. But then, do we want things to be easier on the tyres? Do we want them to get hotter? I assume the hardest compounds of tyres will be used because it's quite a fast track and fast corners, so obviously tyre degradation will be a bit higher. But
Sorry.
yeah, I mean, I hope it can prove me wrong and be a good race. But from what I've seen of like virtual onboard laps and laps on MotoGP, it seems to be more of a motorbike track than
Yeah.
a car racing track, which is understandable given MotoGP race there. But it doesn't appeal to me as a racetrack, let alone the country itself.
Aside from the political views that comes with Qatar and other Arabian countries, I will give it a chance come the weekend and see if it's good for Formula One cars, because it's a first time that Qatar are doing this, and we all know that money talks in a sport like Formula One. Like, I'm giving you X amount of millions. It's, you're not gonna say no to it, are you?
Yeah.
So
I mean, think of all the other tracks that F1 could have raced at this year. I mean, Canada was dropped because of COVID. That's fair enough, but we could have had Malaysia, for example. That hasn't been on
Malaysia
the
hasn't
calendar
been on there
since
for a long time.
2016, 2017.
Yeah.
Malaysia's, I think, is a decent track. Could have had Germany, either the Nürburgring or Hockenheim. We could have had Spa again, the Spa redemption round, if you like, after the farcical race where it tipped it down and no one could overtake it behind the safety car.
Australia.
Where else we could have had? Australia, potentially. Might be a bit difficult with quarantine and COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Killarney in South Africa, potentially. Could have had another race in the States. Watkins Glen, for example, somewhere like that. Miami, give Miami a chance. Long Beach,
Yeah.
somewhere, another street circuit, maybe. The Bud International Circuit in India, where F1 is raced at. Yongnam in South Korea. Loads and loads of places where F1 could have potentially raced at, but no, we're going to a motorbike track in Qatar. So after traveling between the USA, Mexico, and Brazil, we've got to cross the Atlantic Ocean, cross all of Africa to get to Qatar in a week. It's insane scheduling and wrong scheduling in my eyes, wrong track, wrong, everything, really, to be honest, in regards to this coming weekend.
Indeed. And before we finish off, we've got one more piece of news to discuss, which it came out this afternoon, that almost surprising, really, that Alfa Romeo's Antonio Giovinazzi will be leaving Formula One at the end of the season with F2's I don't know how to say his first name. Guan Yu Zhao. From F2 will be replacing him in taking the second seat and driving alongside Valtteri Bottas for 2022. What are your thoughts? Well, let me give you my thoughts, actually. I think it's come as a surprise must have been a surprise to Giovinazzi and everyone in Formula One, because let's be honest, Giovinazzi is not a race winner, but he is somebody to have in that Formula One community. He's quiet, but he's just someone to have in that team. He's not a big name, but he's just, he's a good driver. He's not bad. He's in a decent team, and he didn't do so bad this season.
Well, I think, I don't know, just looking at his career stats, he's done, at time of recording, 59 races, got 19 points. Last year he was 17th with 4 points. This year, has he got any points? I can't remember. Let's just have a look if I can find the driver's standings now. I've got lost on me. Let's have a look. So 1 point for Giovinazzi this year. So can you argue that that's worthy of keeping a seat in F1? He's been racing in F1 for 3 full seasons. Did a couple races for Sauber in 2017 where he stood in for Pascal Wehrlein at Australia and China, I think. So is it argued that he deserves to stay in Formula One? I do feel a bit sad for him because,
Yeah.
as I say, he just seems like a nice guy, like a genuine nice guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's not as good a driver, or he's not the best driver on the grid. I wouldn't say he's as good as, say, like Norris or Ricciardo or Vettel, Ocon, Alonso, people like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like his career's been cut short a little bit in Formula. I feel like he had more to give. I think if you got him into like a decent midfield car, like say the Aston Martin or the Alpine, Alpha Tauri, I think he would have been a reliable point scorer. But has he been a good enough number 2 to Kimi Raikkonen at Alfa Romeo? Debatable.
Yeah. I think he did. Did he not get that 1 point in Monaco in 10th place?
That's a good question. I've got no idea.
Because I believe he did finish 10th this season in a GP race, which I think it was Monaco.
I'm just trying to have a look. Actually, it was indeed Monaco. Well remembered. I just looking through the races for this season. 12th in Bahrain, 14th at Imola, 12th in Portimao, 15th in Spain, at 1 point in Monaco, just outside the points in Azerbaijan, 11th. France and Syria, 15th, Austria, 14th. A run of 3 13ths in a row, a bit unlucky for the UK, Hungary, Belgium. 14th Netherlands, 13th Italy, 16th Russia, and then a run of 3 11th places at Turkey, the USA, and Mexico, and obviously 14th at Sao Paulo at the weekend. So a little bit unlucky to miss out on, was it 4 points scoring positions, just 1 point outside the points on 4 occasions. So arguably a little bit unlucky.
Yeah.
Scored a few points last year, 4 points last year, 2 10th places and a 9th place. But compare that to Kimi Raikkonen. Yeah, Raikkonen's a vastly more experienced driver, but after 3 years, you'd have found your feet in the car. You'd know what the car feels like, know all the tracks fairly well. You'd think anyway. So whether he's good enough to say, I don't know. But that doesn't mean I can't feel sorry for him, because it's nice to have an Italian driver racing for an Italian team, if you know what I mean. Because Alfa Romeo, well, sort of half Italian, half Swiss team with the links to Sauber. But yeah, I still feel a bit sorry for Giovinazzi, and as I say, allows Guan Yu Zhou from F2 to make way. Whether he's deserved his place, earned his place, there will be debate about that. There has been debate about that. People saying that Oscar Piastri or Theo Pourchaire should get the seat instead. I think Piastri has gone to Alpine to be their reserve driver for next year.
That's very good for
interesting
him.
That both Zhou and Piastri are part of the Alpine Drivers Academy, and yet Guan Yu Zhou has gone to a Ferrari-powered Ferrari, not necessarily junior team, but that sort of thing. Ferrari, there's a word and I can't think of what it is, but that sort of team that has links with Ferrari. So whether that'll spell the end of his run, maybe through the Alpine and Renault Drivers Academy.
Do you mean like a sister team?
Sort of, yeah. So yeah, because obviously Alfa Romeo and Haas are powered by Ferrari, they have links to Ferrari.
Yeah.
And Charles Leclerc, for example, made his way from Alfa Romeo Sauber into the main Ferrari team. So whether Guan Yu Zhou will keep his links with Alpine after this move, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how he does, because I can't remember where he is in the F2 season. I think he's about 4th. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard, there are more talented drivers like Piastri, like Pourchaire, who could have got the seat. And in the video that WTF1 released today, I think they said something about sponsorship money, and that Guan Yu Zhou is more of a paid driver than getting in on pure merit, on pure talent. But sponsors might have allegedly offered up to $30 million, I think it was, euros. I can't quite remember.
That's a lot of money.
For Guan Yu
That's a
Zhou to
lot
get
of
a seat in
money.
F1, which is a lot of money, and I think that makes him potentially the third paid driver on the grid after Mazepin and Stroll. And obviously, F1 drivers and racing drivers carry a lot of sponsors with them, but I mean, Stroll is there primarily because his dad owns the team. Same with Mazepin. You can potentially argue the same with Guan Yu Zhou going into Alfa Romeo. But I look forward to seeing how he gets on. Hopefully, he doesn't flop and people just take the piss out of him. I think we do with Mazepin. I mean, Mazepin's for other reasons besides being a pay driver.
Yeah, that's other reasons.
Yeah, but first Chinese F1 driver. That's quite some history.
It is.
And F1 has raced in China for quite a few years now. So to be the first one from China to make that breakthrough into Formula One is quite a big piece of history.
I mean, we have had. I don't know. Have we had an Indian driver before? I know we've had Indonesian.
Narain Karthikeyan and
Hariato from Indonesia.
Rio Haryanto from Indonesia, yeah.
We've had Kobayashi from Japan.
Yeah.
And
Sato as well, Ide.
Yeah. And we've got Sonoda this year.
Yeah, of course, yes. I forgot about Sonoda.
We've got Sonoda this year. So yeah, we've the Asian community, they've produced a lot of F1 drivers over the years. So they've done pretty well. Yeah, and also sticking with Antonio Giovinazzi, it was announced very quickly, I believe, because
it
was quite quick. It's like you leave one form of motorsport and he's immediately jumped into another in mere hours. Giovinazzi, it's been announced that he'll be joining Formula E next season with the Dragon FE team, partnering Sergio Sette Camera. So yeah, and it's going to be good. Him in a Formula E car, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen quite a few F1 drivers go over to Formula E. Obviously, Stoffel Van Dorn, Felipe Massa,
Pascal
Wehrlein, Lucas Di Grassi, Antonio Felix da Costa, John-Eric Vergne, who's a two-time champion. So he's not the first to do it, and I hope it works out for him because, as we said, he seems like a nice. Obviously, we haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but from just the aura that you get from him, the sort of vibes you get from him, he just seems like a genuine nice guy. And I'm just trying to find out where Dragon finished in the championship. They're a decent team. For what I remember, I think Sette Camera was fighting for podiums and race wins a few times last season. And just I hope it works out for him. I hope he does well in Formula E and doesn't sort of get this reputation of I couldn't make it in F1, so so switch to Formula E sort of thing. Just looking at they finished 11th actually, Dragon, so the second from bottom after Neo. So, but he brings experience with it. He brings single-seater experience. But then when we spoke to Hazel Southwell quite a while ago now, she said that it doesn't really matter what sort of background these drivers are from because Formula E is just completely different. So again, just hope it works out for him. Hope Dragon can get back up to mid-table, top of the table, and hopefully the experience that Giovinazzi brings with him will help them to do that.
Indeed. And just lastly, before we round it off, predictions for Qatar. Yeah, I know.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, predictions for Qatar. Obviously, it's a first-time track for everybody, but we're nearly there. Just three more races to go.
I'm not going to waste any time. I think it'll be Hamilton pole and Hamilton win. Just because I think the track will suit Mercedes most. Yeah, it's high downforce, which can favour Red Bull a little bit, but I think just the power of the Mercedes and the confidence they must have off the back of Brazil. I think that will help them quite a bit going into Qatar. Driver of the day, tricky, I think. Again, we've only got one right all season, and you nearly got one right last week as well. So one out of what we know, 19 races, 20 races.
Yeah,
We haven't done
20.
well on the driver of the day front.
Yeah,
I think Qatar's the 20th. No, 28. Yeah,
yeah,
no, Brazil
Qatar's
was the 20th.
20th.
Yeah. Driver of the day. I'm going to go Sebastian Vettel.
Okay.
Because I think another Mercedes powered car. I think Aston Martin are that sort of team that might start outside the point, but then Vettel can work his way up into the points, maybe get a sixth or a seventh, maybe a fifth place if he's lucky. Had a good few races early on in the season. Was provisionally second for Hungary before he got disqualified. I think got second or third again at Azerbaijan. So yeah, Vettel for driver of the day. Why not?
Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Right, I'm gonna probably I'm gonna repeat what you said. I think Hamilton's gonna take a double sweep with pole position and race win. It suits Mercedes. I feel Mercedes will have a good advantage going into the Middle East. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton for pole position, race win. Hopefully he can get 102 now. And driver of the day. I mean this drive. Well, I don't know. It's a yeah. Driver of the day has never been easy. Daniel Ricciardo. I think
I was thinking of McLaren
he's
before
had
I said
a.
Vettel.
If I was to describe his season, he's probably disappointed. Maybe
Yeah, I'd say
disappointed
so.
this season. He won in Monza, which was great, but overall, I think he hasn't really. He's getting to grips with the car, but Lando Norris has outperformed him this season. But I think Daniel Ricciardo could go to Qatar and put in a good drive and just try and finish the season as strongly as he can. And that's him for driver of the day for me, for Qatar.
So we've both gone Hamilton pole, both gone Hamilton win, and slightly different drivers of the day, but still Mercedes powered teams.
Of course, of course.
Interesting.
And yeah, it will be interesting for Qatar this weekend, as I've said, first time track in 2021, and it we just hopefully, well, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be exciting because you said that Formula One in Qatar may not, you know, live to the hype with the rating, but
It's
yeah,
the most. It's four wheelers racing on two wheel track.
yeah,
It's what I think anyway.
yeah. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed the episode AfterBurners podcast, and I've been your host Samuel Oni. We've had an amazing Hamilton weekend last time out in Brazil. Can he do it again in Qatar? Can he take that, put one hand on the F1 World Championship? Who knows? Well, I've been your host, Samuel Oni, and it's a goodbye from me. Bye-bye. And a goodbye from Wes.
Bye bye.
And we hope you enjoy Qatar this weekend.